Hey everyone, I'm Summer from the Dark, and today I have a tutorial video showing you how to use the new sound features that were added to HyperCrown version 0.1.6. Let's get started. Alright, so here we have HyperCrown version 0.1.6. Take a look. There were two sound features added in the 1.6 update. The first one is here. It is the import sound -V. And the other one is right here, extract sound, which is -lowercase b. So those are the two functions that I'm going to be showing you how to use today. First, let's take a look at the different file types that are supported by HyperCrown. And the first one we'll take a look at is the MDLS format. So this is Sephiroth's model file. I'm using a boss because the bosses usually have all the different types of sound files in them, so it will serve as a good point for the tutorial. First, let's go ahead and extract these sound files from the MDLS. Alright, so we're going to run the -b command, which is the extracting sounds command. -p is just going to specify the path, and we'll have our input here that we want to extract from. So if we go ahead and run this command, you can see it extracts several files. Most of them are these VAG files. VAG files are just the sound format for the PlayStation 2. You'll also notice that it extracts this SE file here. We'll come back to that in just a second. So I'm going to use the VAG and VAS Previewer. This tool I will have a download link to in the description, but it's a very useful tool. If we go ahead and open file here, you can see that you can open VAG files, VAS files, or WAV files. So let's just open up one of these VAG files. And we can play the sound effect, so you can hear Sephiroth's voice right there. You can see the volume of the file here. Important to make sure this is non-zero. You can also save the VAG file as a WAV file, or likewise if you put a WAV file in here, you can save it as a VAG file. So it's very useful for being able to export or import the sounds in whatever format you want them to be in. And it's very useful for making custom sound effects. You can also see the sample rate, which is a good thing to check when you open up the originals, because you'll want the new files generally to be the same sample rate to make sure no issues happen. And you can also check the number of channels. Those are the main things that we're concerned about with this tool. So yeah, if we head back over, we can now take a look. So these are all the VAG files that were just directly in the MDLS, and those are going to be for the sounds, the battle quotes of the boss, if they exist in that file. Usually only the bosses will have these. We also have this SE file, and many of the MDLSs, even ones that aren't bosses, have this SE file in them. So let's go ahead and take a look at the SE file. We can run the extract command again, this time on the SE file instead of the MDLS. And what we get out is this WD file. And if we run the extract command one more time, this time on the WD file, we get a handful more of the VAG files. And if we head back over to the Previewer, inside this SE file, the VAG files that we extracted are the ones that are primarily going to be for sound effects. So for example, if we play this one, it's Sephiroth's sword swing. You can see this one has a different sample rate, different volume, and you can tweak those as you want. I believe for the ones in the WD file that we just extracted, you have to have the sample rate be the same. So if you want to import custom sounds, they will need to be 14700 as the sample rate. And one channel, of course. How we extract the VAG files from these different containers. Now let's check how we can go about importing the VAG files back in. To do this, we're going to use the import command. That's the -V. Again, I'm going to specify a path, so I don't have to put this in front of every single file here. The first file that we then put down is the original WD file, this guy right here. Next, we are going to put the file name that we want to save the output to. So I'm just going to change that 0 in the file name to a 1, so I don't overwrite my original. And then we're going to list the VAG files that we want to put into the container. And in this case, I'm just going straight down the list. And the order that they're listed here is the order they will be stored in the WD file. If we go ahead and run this command, you can see that it successfully creates this file right here. And since I just repacked the exact same sounds, they have the same file name. But if you imported custom sounds, this WD file would now contain the custom special effects sound effects. We can then run the import sound once again, the import command once again. So this time I'm going to specify the original SE file, the name of the new SE file, and then the new WD file that I just created. And this will put the WD file back into the SE file. And there we are. Now we have this guy right here. And if we take it to the next step, we can run the import command again. This time we will use the original MDLS. There's the name for my new MDLS with a -s, because it's telling me that I put the new SE file into it. And then we just specify where the new SE file is. And there we go. We now have this guy right here, has these sound effects imported back into it. Again, if they were custom sound effects, it would now have the custom sound effects in the MDLS. We can also repack the battle quotes for the boss in a very similar manner. So all we have to do for this one is specify the VAG files directly. And so we have the MDLS. I'm going to use the -s one that I just created. That way I preserve the changes that were already made. And then my new one, I'm going to put -sv to signify that we have a modified SE file and a modified VAG file in it. And then again, the order does matter here. Most of the time, the order they're stored in is just alphabetical, so you can go in the order that it appears right here. So I just have them all listed out in the same order. If we run this command, and we get the new MDLS file here that has all the sounds re-imported back into it. Again, if I imported this into the game, there would be no changes because I didn't modify any of these sound effect files. But if you did, this MDLS would now have those new sounds imported into it. And you could hear them in the game if you imported this into the game. Let's go ahead and check out the next type of file. For the weapon files, XWEX5010.WPN would be the kingdom key weapon model, but each one has a corresponding .se file, and these .se files are the exact same as the .se files that we extracted from the MDLS just a moment ago. So we can run similar commands to extract the contents of these. So if we use -b, we specify the .se file, and we get the WD file out. We can then extract the contents of the WD file, and this one has 3 VAGs in it. If we wanted to import those VAGs back into the WD file, we just use the -b command, and we specify the original WD like we did before. My new one right here, I'm just going to put a 1 again, and then I specify the 3 VAG files. And now we have this new WD file. And finally, we can import back to the SE file. -V, the original SE file, the new SE file, and the new WD file that I just created. And that gives us this SE file, which we could then import back into the game in place of this one. This one doesn't need to go in anything because the WPN files don't directly contain them. They're separate files. So you'll be able to put modded sound effects for your weapons by doing this process. Next, we'll take a look at the VSV files. al_Sora.vsp contains Sora's battle quotes for while he's in Agrabah. So let's go ahead and extract the contents of the VSP. We're going to use the same type of command, the -b command, and this time we just specify the VSP file instead. And when we do this, we get out a bunch of VAGs. These are Sora's battle quotes. And then we can repack them in the same way with the -v command. You specify the original VSP, the name that you would like to save the output to, and then the VAGs in order. Again, in this case, it's just alphabetical order. And we get the new VSP file. The final type of file that is supported is the VSET file. In this case, these VSET files contain the sound effects for many of the cutscenes, and this one is one of the ones from Agrabah, hence the AL. We extract the contents of the files using, again, the -b command. So here we're just going to specify the VSET, and we get these VAGs out. And just like before, we can use the -V, and we specify the original VSET, the output, and then each of the VAGs in order. Run the command, and it will re-import them, and we get a new VSET file. Those are all of the types of sound effect files that are supported by the current version of HyperCrown, version 0.1.6. In the future, I would like to add support for the remaining types of sound effect files. If you would like to help support the project, I'll have a link to my Patreon down below if you're interested in doing so. We have multiple tiers on the Patreon, so no matter what you are capable of providing, we'd greatly appreciate it. I'd like to thank my Dark Side tier patrons, Stephen Walker and Sephiroth4590. I'd also like to thank my Neo Shadow patrons, Tristan, Watts Willis, and Crackle.